dive into this as well because it still feels like the old school playoff version or the old school 4-team playoff. It still feels that way, but Alabama's just fine. They have a win over Georgia. They took a loss to Vanderbilt. They're going to be just fine as long as DeBoer doesn't completely implode. Tennessee's going to be fine. Like, this is the thing that the playoff is going to bring, that those were usually absolute death blow to the season. It is now over. Alabama could bounce back. I don't know if they will, but they could.
Did just, I'm curious because I saw this on Twitter too. That loss brought two rival fan bases together. I'm curious. Did in your house is a great example. Were both you and your wife happy to see Kalen DeBoer lose? Because I know there were a lot of memes put out there like friends coming together, Ducks and Husky fans thrilled to see Kalen DeBoer finally lose.
Now, I don't have the same schadenfreude that my wife has, which is joy in the misery of others. Kalen DeBoer put it on my beloved Oregon Ducks, and I tip my cap to a guy that showed up with a better team and beat us. You know what I mean? And so I don't really take a lot of joy in his misery, but let's just say from Alabama losing to Vanderbilt and like their 10% of the stadium rushing the field, and then Washington beating Michigan, vibes were high.
I bet.
With my better half. All right. But vibes were high on Friday night at Autzen Stadium. Vibes were tense on Saturday night in Reser Stadium. The Willamette Valley, some call it the I-5 corridor, had some interesting football being played on Friday and Saturday night. We dive into that next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, what a Saturday. Well, it started Friday night. As Oregon dismantled Michigan State. They have now set the table. Oregon has done their job. Ohio State has done their job. The table is now set, and we're going to have a whole week to talk about this game, and we shall be talking about it for a good chunk of the week because whenever I hear this is the biggest, greatest, most hyped thing ever, Brendan knows this, both on the air and off. My brain instantly goes to, maybe not so fast. And I start thinking, well, there was this, and there was this, and there was this. But in terms of games at Autzen Stadium, we could, and we may, debate and discuss, is this the biggest game? Is this the most anticipated game? It's number 2 versus number 3. There are actual national championship implications on the line. It's the Big Ten as opposed to the Pac-10, which is a bigger deal. It just is. I don't like it. I still love the old Pac-10/12, but this is a bigger deal nationally when Ohio State, who is a gigantic brand, and Oregon get together and play 2 versus 3. Game day is there. Josh Pate's there. I would imagine a handful of other prominent, the college football media world is going to be ascending upon it. My parents who live in Salem are thinking about putting their house up on Airbnb because they're like, we might be able to rent out our house.
They come stay with you guys instead?
They were thinking of going to Sun River and just doing a whole.
Nice.
But
Dude, that would be a genius move. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, but they can't because they have to dog sit because I'm going to the game. They got to dog sit. Anyways, so the table has been set, and here we are. This is what we thought was going to happen back in June, July, August. It didn't look like it was gonna maybe be the same, but now it's back, and it's gonna be an unbelievable, I think, week. It's going to be an unbelievable weekend. This is why college football is the best, is because you get these kind of matchups, these playoff championship-type atmospheres in the middle of October, and you don't get that in any other sport in any place and time. So let's talk about the Ducks. The Ducks on Friday night dismantled Michigan State. You can look at the Dillon Gabriel part of this one of two ways. Dillon Gabriel has like 5 years of college football to look back upon. And if you look back at his career, he doesn't have a crazy history of throwing dumb interceptions. We've seen quarterbacks in the past. Heck, Bo Nix was one of them. Bo Nix was one of them, where you look back at Bo Nix at Auburn and you were like, oh, yeah, he can make a play to beat Alabama. He also, against Louisiana Monroe, might throw it into triple coverage, right? And we've seen that with certain quarterbacks. Gabriel really has never been one of those guys, but these last 2 weeks, going back to the pick six he threw against UCLA, and then the 2 interceptions, both, again, not even in the red zone, on the 5, where the way Oregon was playing against Michigan State could have just fed the rock and run the ball. That all of a sudden he's got some interception problems. He's still accurate. He's still throwing for an awful lot of yards. He threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for another. You take away the interceptions, which I'm not willing to do. He had a fairly complete game against a Big Ten opponent at home, on a short week, setting up a top 5 matchup. That being said, I believe Oregon, to beat Ohio State, is going to have to play nearly a perfect game. And when you get the ball down to that part of the field, into that close to the end zone, field goals aren't going to win it. Interceptions certainly aren't going to win it. And you have to find a way to punch the ball in. So he went 20 of 32, 257, threw 2 touchdowns, ran another, but threw 2 picks. And now I think what's odd about the Oregon football season. And let me preface this by saying they're the number 3 team in the country, and they're 5-0. This is nitpicky stuff, what I'm about to do. All right? This is nitpicky stuff. But if you look at all the concerns that you have for Oregon football, Well, the offensive line, boy, they sure shored up their game because the offensive line that looked to be a bit of a problem, Gabriel was incredibly well protected, and the running game got going. Jordan James went for $156, got a touchdown, hit a 41-yarder, had an explosion play, needed that. He averaged 7 yards a carry. After the last 3 weeks, he's averaging somewhere around 6 per carry. Oregon's got the run game figured out, at least against Oregon State, UCLA, and Michigan State. Different animal with the Buckeyes. I get that. But if you weren't running it against those teams, there would be a massive worry heading into the Ohio State game. I am less worried about the offensive line today than I was after the Boise game, and Oregon has seemed to kind of figure out the offensive line things. Defense, never really a problem throughout the season. Again, the only problem that the Oregon defense has had all year is a guy named Ashton Jeanty, and I don't know if you've noticed, but everybody's got a problem with that dude. Brennan and his Beavs are going to meet him coming up in November. Well,
hoping for like a ankle sprain the week before that game. Just, something minor. Won't keep him out, but, just something along those lines would be really, really nice.
We're already hearing, and I knew this was coming. I knew it was coming. It's why I brought up the topic we talked about last week with Boise and Jeanty. I knew it was coming. We're already hearing should Jeanty sit out the whole season? Should he sit out the rest of the season? We're already hearing those hot takes.
I don't know.
From guys who I don't think are crazy on the internet.
This is biased, Justin. I just don't know if the Heisman is ever going to not ever, but you'd have to do a lot to get it at Boise. I don't. It'd be the smallest school they ever awarded it to, by far.
Ty Detmer won it at BYU.
Well, Boise's much smaller than BYU.
I would say Boise in 2024 is about what BYU was in 90.
Okay, with Detmer,
it was 90.
Yeah. Okay,
Detmer won it in 90, so it'd be somewhere on that level.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think he'd have to have an incredible season, be 2 legs above everyone else for them not to go, just this East Coast SEC guy. Why
am I forgetting? There was in the 80s, he played for Houston. His name escapes me, but you're right. There's a handful of guys from in my lifetime where, you had Ty Detmer winning at BYU.
How do we feel with RG3 and Baylor?
I mean, they were a Big 12 school, but they weren't in the national title race.
Well,
you have the Heisman list in front of you.
Salam at Colorado, 94.
He was so good that year. He was unbelievable, and they were national title contender back then.
You said Andre Ware from Houston.
That's who I was thinking of, Andre Ware. And Houston.
Doug Flutie, Boston College, but still ACC.
Still ACC. That was a big deal, and beat Miami, and yeah. So
it would going back to when Roger Staubach won it at Navy. That would be it.
I mean, the 2 best players that I have seen this year, it's Travis Hunter and it's Ashton Jeanty. Those are the 2 best players that I have seen. Cam Ward is crazy fun to watch, but he also does crazy stuff with the football sometimes. It's not Jalen Milroe's fault, but I don't know how you win a Heisman Trophy and lose to Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it should be an automatic disqualifier, and that game had much more to do with Alabama's defense than Alabama's offense. I don't know how you give a Heisman Trophy to a dude that lost to Vanderbilt. Now, you also have a dude that beat Georgia. So there is that. And here's the other thing. Well, it's been a very fun turn of events from September to October. You've got a massive matchup both with Texas and Oklahoma and Oregon and Ohio State. You might see this Heisman thing get wide open. But point being, Oregon's defense has only had problems with one player this year so far. One player. And that one player is going to give everybody problems. He's going to be the first running back taken off the board. Jeanty is that guy. So if the defense isn't a problem, and the defense, by the way, looked so they held UCLA last week to under 200 yards of offense. Michigan State had 250 yards of total offense. 61 of them were in garbage time in the fourth quarter. When it mattered, when Oregon was playing its starters, so you have back-to-back weeks against UCLA and Michigan State that the Oregon defense has held them to under 200 yards. Again, there were 60-some yards of some garbage time stuff. Jonathan Smith needed to get some confidence in Aiden Childs. Aiden Childs looks like he is seeing ghosts out there. That kid was he was uncomfortable. He was disruptive. And Oregon defense is going to do that to a lot of quarterbacks. He did not have a very good return to the Pacific Northwest. Let's just say that. So defense isn't the problem for Oregon. The offensive line is massively, massively improved. Jordan James, I believe, is that feature back and should be the feature back. What's Oregon's biggest concern? Coaching? They seem to have gotten past what was a lethargic first 2 weeks of the season to be focused and ready to go. And as nitpicky as it sounds, it's crazy that I'm even going to say this out loud. Brendan Dillon Gabriel's Oregon's biggest concern right now. He's their biggest concern. Now, that might be living high on the hog, if you know what I'm saying, when a couple of non-game threatening interceptions is your biggest concern. But I think that's the biggest question that Oregon fans have right now, including myself. And this is not me throwing Dillon Gabriel under the bus. He is a terrific quarterback. Oregon would not be where they are, I believe, with Dante Moore at quarterback. Gabriel is a tremendous add, all of that. But I think the question in the back of everyone's mind is he good enough to beat Ohio State? Can Dillon Gabriel get it dialed in? Because the first 2 weeks of the season, he was running all over the place because the offensive line had no continuity. It was the first 2 weeks of the season. Sacks, some 3-and-outs, playing behind the sticks. He did not have an easy go. Now they've cleaned that up, and all of a sudden now he's throwing picks near the end zone, which one was a pick six. I guess if you're going to throw picks, I mean, you throw it at that part, but it's so frustrating because you're taking points off the board. So now heading into Ohio State, as nuts as it sounds, Oregon's biggest concern is quarterback. And it's, again, this is a great problem to have. Because if you go back, and I did, like if you go back and you look at Dillon Gabriel's kind of career passing numbers, there's a lot of them. Last year, 30 touchdowns to 6 picks. Not bad. That's not bad. You'll take 30 to 6 in a season for Oklahoma. 2022, 25 touchdowns to 6 picks. 2021, 9 touchdowns to 3 picks, but I think that's when he got injured. I don't think he played a full season in 2021. And then you go back to 2019, freshman year, 29 touchdowns to 7 picks. This is not a dude that is careless with the football. His freshman year, which was Bo Nix's freshman year, which is interesting. But his freshman year was pre-pandemic. In 2019, he threw 7 picks. That's the most picks he's ever thrown in a season. Like, this is not a dude that is careless with the football, and for whatever reason, maybe it's something that can get figured out in the next couple of days. You hope so. He's had a thing around the end zone where he's thrown a couple of picks here and there. But after what looked to be a very slow start, Oregon's dialed it up. Ohio State, it comes in rolling. And we got maybe the greatest matchup in the history of Autzen Stadium. And we'll have a whole week to figure that one out. Brendan, you were in a bit of a nail-biter on Saturday.
That's putting it kindly.
There were other things going on which we shall not discuss, but I was texting you in the fourth quarter. Fully admit, had a nice little buzz going. And I don't know if you appreciated the text messages I was sending you of my buzzed commentary.
Due to other factors, they were ill-timed. I'll say that. Due to other factors, they were ill-timed. Beyond like the field and so, just a lot was going on in Brendan's noggin at that particular moment. We'll just leave it all at that. All worked out. Everything's fine. But just a lot was going on in Brendan's noggin. I'm like, Justin, I love you, appreciate you, but
I'm watching your game. I'm like, hey.
And I'm sitting there like, yeah, kind of like one word answer reply. I'm like, yes, no, yes, no. I'm like, I can't think right now. I'm like, I'm too.
Then you sent me a text. You said, I'm dying up here. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave him alone.
Yeah.
Oregon State's heading into double overtime, and you're like, I'm dying up here. And I'm like, all right. I might just leave him alone.
No, all jokes aside.
I got a really good margarita buzz going right now. With what I had
man.
Oh man,
I'll tell you that. I was jealous because I think a lot of Beaver fans probably were needing a little buzz to get through that game, Justin. Because what a game it was. Obviously, a flair for the dramatic, as I mentioned in the update, and I'm not sure that's necessarily how the Beavers wanted to draw it up against a team they were 11-point favorites over going into the weekend, but that's how the college football cookie crumbles.
And that's what I'm saying, because I watch college football two ways. I watch my team in a bubble where I compare my team to my expectations. You know what I mean? And then I watch college football in a bubble, or not in a bubble, in a macro sense. And probably wasn't on your Oregon State bingo card at home going to double overtime against Colorado State this year. Probably wasn't on it. But it could be Cal today, where you had a 25-point lead. You could be Tennessee, where your quarterback completely forgot what time was left on the clock.
Oh yeah, I mean at the end of the day, Justin, like everything that we talked about going in, like Oregon State's 4-1. If you had told any Beaver fan after Jonathan Smith left them to die in November,
and Childs left, and a handful of the defense left, like they're playing for USC.
Took your four-star quarterback, who maybe was a little overrated, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Looked a little overrated this year, but
I don't know if Aiden Childs is not going to be very good, or if Oregon's defense is that good. It might be a combination of both.
It probably
because
is.
Aiden Childs does turn the ball over a ton, and he did it again.
Yep, he did. And that's
first series.
Kind of
gets careless with the football. He coughs it up, and then as soon as Oregon got mad, he had some happy feet. He did not look comfortable. And
meanwhile, Justin,
Tosh Lupoi looked like he was in Jonathan Smith's headset.
Yeah,
he just did. He looked like. Now it helps when you've got the dudes that Oregon's got. But he looked like he was in his headset.
Yeah, I mean, that game went as exactly as I expected it to. I was thrilled to see Jonathan be a loser at Autzen Stadium again. So, many times, I think like 2 or 3 as a player, 3 or 4 as a coach, like you always leave after getting blown out. Funny how that works.
But the Beavs are 4-1. And again, we talked about it last week on Thursday, and it's an incredible stat that you found, and I don't think it should be overlooked. Yeah. You went to
Mike
double
Parker.
overtime.
He did give a shout out on the broadcast. It's pretty sweet, man. Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
You went to double overtime against Colorado State. Yeah, that second half against Oregon, not memorable. Yeah, that first half against Idaho State, not 4-1. You're 4-1. No Oregon State coach in their first year of coaching the Beavs has ever been 4-1. It's never happened before. This is history. It took double overtime to do it. But you're 4-1. That's in the history of Oregon State football. That's a big deal. What's the line on Nevada? What do we got there?
5-point favorite, I believe. 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
So Nevada went toe-to-toe with San Jose State, who took Washington State to overtime.
Yes.
So that's going to be an interesting game. Lots of former Pac-12 players. You might remember running back for you, Sean Dollars, now a Nevada Wolfpack. Brendan Lewis, who was quarterback for Colorado a couple years ago. So it's kind of like the Pac-12 retread team. Jeff Choate is their head coach. He came over from Texas. He was their co-DC last year. So, they quietly got, a good number of transfers, with his cachet coming from Texas. And they've been more competent than I would have liked, Justin. For
Yeah.
someone who's traveling down to this game, putting his money where his mouth is, they're a little more competent than I expected.
It is very funny that on a college football Saturday of Oregon, Ohio State, the Red River Shootout, I still call it that, Ole Miss, LSU, right? They've said this might be the greatest slate of games. My good friend Brendan's like, yeah, I'm going to the Beavs Nevada game. Which, obviously, there's reasons behind it, but it's funny.
I'll have to catch the Oregon Ohio State on my phone.
Yeah.
He's sitting there, just
Time's kickoff, 4:30? Oh, yeah, I'll be kicking off at the same time. All right, we got more.
I wonder where the majority of people be tuned into, Justin. I wonder.
That's a good question.
Not that I want to bag on my own team, but even as selfishly, I'm like, I want to keep tabs on Oregon Ohio State game. Probably game of the year.
Let's hope so, because I'm going to be down there, and I'm very excited about it. But
Still
it is set
haven't,
up between number 2 and number 3, and the reason that it is set up between number 2 and number 3, because there was a lot of upsets this weekend. We'll try to dive into as many of those as possible next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's wrap up hour number one. Coming up in hour number two, Joel Gunderson's going to join the show. We'll look back at the Oregon win against Michigan State and obviously look ahead and get his thoughts. Is this the biggest game in Autzen Stadium history? I mean, Autzen Stadium's got a pretty substantial history. I've seen some big games there myself. But leading into it, I don't know. I just don't know. There's a handful of games that pop into my brain, and it's tough. It's tough to compare the two because you have an outcome, right? There was a game, I want to say it was, I believe it was 2010. 2010, Stanford at Autzen. Remember, Stanford still had Andrew Luck, and Oregon was rolling. Stanford was the only team in the conference that beat the Ducks in 2009, and that was a huge game. I want to say game day was there for that, but Oregon blew their doors off. And so you look back at that game and you go like, well, yeah, they blew their doors off. And so you don't have that same maybe thought. You then fast forward a year. USC comes to LeBron and company. They're on the field. That was a huge game.
Dude, Kiffin.
And then USC beat up Oregon, lost, and now as an Oregon fan, you go like, Like they had, and I don't know what they're going to do at Autzen on Saturday, but Brendan, you've been there. Sitting in the press box, there's the charter box across the way. They put temporary bleachers on top of, like they were stacking up temporary bleachers to squeeze as many people into that game, which I think they're going to do on Saturday as well.
They can be able to push it to 60, you think?
I think so.
Remember the year
I think this is going to be the most people ever in Autzen Stadium. I think they'll find a way to squeeze that many people in.
So what about the year they did the risers that came over the back of the end zone that I don't think were in the stadium, but I thought
so that was 2011. That was also, I think that was the USC
like it was like
game.
Behind the scoreboard kind of a thing, if I remember correctly. But it was like
I
was
think
a big
they're
deal.
setting up temporary bleachers all over the place.
Yeah, I mean Oregon State before they actually no, they still do. One of the very things that they have to do for postseason baseball, Justin, they have to have extra bleachers added to the outfield.
Yeah. Because
they're like, we need this, like, it's postseason. Very different scale, obviously, but I think in this particular case, if you can erect temporary bleachers, get 60, do it, man.
Well, what's interesting is that, like, you think about those games, but you can't help but think of them without the outcome. That Oregon-USC game was nuts, but they lost. Also, Oregon was 14-point favorites in that. It wasn't. USC was on probation. It was still USC, but it wasn't quite. The Halloween night game in 2009. But that USC team was, I think they were 6-6 team.
So could you guess? Oh, let's play a fun game. Could you guess? There are two times. Autzen Stadium has gone over 60,000, at least in reported in the internet. Boom, boom. It is neither of the games you just mentioned.
Okay.
Could you nail it? Final Jeopardy. Well, maybe more like Wheel of Fortune. I don't know. But, yeah. Could you? And you're in the right year range. You are.
09 Civil War?
No. But still similar-ish. I'll give you like a 4.
And it wasn't 2010 Stanford. Was it 2012 Stanford?
Not Stanford. Yeah. I'm getting you now.
What game in 2012? Tennessee?
One game was in 2010, one was in 11. I'll give you that. That's as much as I'll give you.
I was add both of them because I know.
One was, but those are the only two times they've crossed the 60,000 threshold.
2010 game, and it wasn't Stanford.
This one's number 2. I'll give you that one first. Washington.
The Husky game.
60,017 when they beat Washington 53-16.
See, that's why I don't, because it doesn't even feel like it was a rivalry game.
So what do you think is the highest attended game in Autzen Stadium history? It came in 2011. This is where my brain went immediately for how much they hyped up this game. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a game day game, too.
Arizona, no, that was a different game.
Nope.
Arizona.
You had it?
Arizona State?
Yeah.
Arizona State, I was right.
Number 18, Arizona State versus Oregon, 2011, October 15th.
Okay.
Oregon was 9, Arizona State was 18. 60,055 people in the seats, Justin.
It's Arizona State game.
So I'd be curious to know if, not even the Peeps, man, Arizona State.
So think about that. What was Oregon ranked going into that?
9.
Oregon, 9 verers 18.
They were won that Washington game I talked about.
Think about that. 9 versus 18. This is 2 and 3. 2 and 3.
The best prior to that would be Chip Kelly's return. Oregon was 10, UCLA was 9. 2022
Yep.
as far as like that, but that's kind of it.
Nuts.
That's kind of it.
That's nuts. All right, real quick, let's rapid fire through some of these upsets that happened over the weekend. Let's go on campus. Here we go. All right, looking back, this was the top 10, top 11 for fun. This was the top 10 for last week. Alabama, they're heading to Vanderbilt. Try again. Alabama out. Number 4 goes down. Tennessee is facing Arkansas. Nico Iamaleava, he's a Heisman contender. Tennessee's putting up tons of points. Oh, Tennessee goes down. Missouri, the number 9 team in the country, not only goes down to Texas A&M, gets their doors blown off by Texas A&M. So 1, 4, 8, or 9, more than 8 in a moment. Number 10, Michigan. A lot of people were asking, and Brendan, can I pat myself on the back a little bit? Last Friday, I said, Michigan's a top 10 team. Washington's unranked, coming off of a loss to Rutgers. Michigan is an underdog in this game. I go, somebody knows something I don't know. Somebody in Vegas knows something I don't know. That's what they knew as the Washington Huskies took down the Michigan Wolverines. Number 10, they go down. And then just for fun, number 11, USC. Wasn't the craziest ending of the day because I just told you 1, 4, 9, 10 all went down. But USC goes down in what's got to be the most frustrating way. 4th and goal. They run a tush-push. It's unclear. USC looks like they've got it stopped. To the review. Oh. They give Minnesota a touchdown. Do they give Minnesota a touchdown if that play is run in Los Angeles as opposed to being played in Minneapolis? I don't know if they do. So USC goes down. That's all happening. And then the nightcap, College game day at Cal, Miami coming off of a crazy game against Virginia Tech the week before. They're down 25. Brendan, I can go to bed, right? I can go to bed. I wake up. Miami, Cam Ward does it again. He does it again. Should have lost to Virginia Tech, didn't. I guess can't say should have because they didn't. If you should have lost, then you would have lost. We're down 25 in the second half. Questionable calls, sure. If Cal didn't blow a 25-point lead, I think the officiating thing would maybe be a bit bigger. But Miami just won't die. Miami won't die.
So do we need to move the term? Like, did Cal like bear it?
Did they bear it?
Not couged it, but like, did they bear it?
Well,
I mean,
I don't know. They called it. I guess maybe we could say that.
I was actually
that's a tough one. It's a tough one because again, I went to bed. I was like, this. I put the game on and fell asleep. Woke up the next morning. That's not what I expect to see on my phone. More football stuff coming up next. 620 Rip City Radio.
6 a.m. on a Monday. Brendan Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings. The Oregon Ducks cruise past Michigan State 31-10 on Friday night as the Ducks take down Jonathan Smith in his return to Autzen Stadium. On Saturday night, a little bit different story up north in Corvallis as the Beavers had a flair for the dramatic, taking down Colorado State 39-31 in double overtime. And in NFL action yesterday, the Seattle Seahawks dropped their second straight game with a 29-20 loss to the Giants at Lumen Field. That'll be more talk about tomorrow here on The Big Show, but that was a surprising result. Coming up here in about 20 minutes, we're going to catch up with Joel Gunderson from Scoop Duck. You got Hour 2, Rip City Mornings.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you're all having a fantastic Monday morning. I'm having a great time. Did you see the college football weekend? I don't like Friday games. I don't like them. I am on the record. Don't like them. That being said, because, I'm Captain Positivity. You know what I mean? I am Mr. Puppy Dogs and Rainbows. All right. I'm just here to try to spread the joy and love of sports. Every once in a while, I get a little salty, but for the most part, I try to be a nice guy and I try to find the positivity in everything. And while Friday night game, traffic a bit brutal, even though I left early, traffic still a bit brutal. Having a full day on Saturday to just sit and watch everything that I got to see, from Alabama going down to Vanderbilt to Tennessee losing to Arkansas, and the way that Tennessee lost, to watching Washington kind of throttle Michigan. What do they say? The smell is off the rose, shall we say, for the Michigan Wolverines, as I don't know if that was the outcome that they thought about. New life injected into Washington Husky fans as they no longer want to replace the quarterback, replace the coach, and everybody else after losing 2 out of 3 games. So the Huskies, they get some life back in the USC. Maybe we pump the brakes on the USC is back. Maybe we just pump the brakes a little bit on the USC is back. Remember week 1 when they beat LSU and they're like, oh, Lincoln Riley fixed it. That's it. He fixed it. Oh, wait, maybe he didn't. Because they went to Minnesota and they took an L to the Minnesota Golden Gophers in a tough. So you've got 1, 4. Missouri gets smoked. 8, 10, 11, and then there's the Miami Cal game. 2 things can be true at the same time. 2 things can be true at the same time. First thing, Cal should have never been in that position at the end of the game. That we unequivocally say that should never happen. Second thing that can be true, that is one of my biggest frustrations. I believe college football on the field's biggest problem. On the field, not NIL, that's off the field. Transfer portal, that's off the field. Conference realignment, that's all off the field. College football's biggest problem right now on the field is officiating continuity. I watch one game and I see, I'll tell you, last week I was watching Washington Rutgers. Washington was playing at Rutgers in Piscataway, New Jersey. And
just our favorite town, man.
It's just such a fun town to say. Washington was playing Rutgers, and Brendan, in the first quarter, they reviewed for targeting 3 times. In the first quarter. Didn't throw anybody out,
That's
but
surprising.
they reviewed for targeting 3 times. Then I watched Alabama, Georgia that next day, and I'm like, they're not calling targeting today. They're just like, let the boys play. Then I'm watching Cal and Miami on Saturday, and again, fell asleep, woke up, watched the end of that game. I had it recorded, YouTube TV, unlimited DVR. It's the best. And I will never forget the fact that in the Pac-12, there was a time There was a time when the Pac-12 head of officiating called from a cell phone to the main broadcast center, then asked to be patched through to the replay official. I believe that was Arizona State, USC. Woody Dixon was the guy's name. I'll never forget it because that's a funny name. The Pac-12 had an official call in from the car on a cell phone to weigh in on a review. And everybody's like, what a... I don't know if the ACC had anybody on the phone that late at night. But it sure seems like between the way that it ended with Virginia Tech and the review for targeting and then to come back and say no targeting, I don't like targeting as a penalty. I like the way the NFL does it. I like the fact the NFL, it's an unnecessary roughness. Defenseless receiver, lead with your helmet. It's 15 yards. You do it again, you get bounced. I don't like targeting as a penalty or the punitive part of targeting. I think there should be an unnecessary roughness call, but the idea of suspending kids for a half if you get thrown out in the second, it hasn't deterred targeting. As a matter of fact, it's made it more confusing because you watch some games and you go, Alabama, Georgia, they're letting the boys play. They are not calling targeting tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And then you watch Cal, Miami. And you're like, that's clearly targeting. I don't like the rule, but that is the rule, nonetheless, whether you like it or not. And I don't know if the ACC was on the phone, but it's hard to not think about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? When we know that that's actually happened in college football. It's hard not to think about that stuff when certain conferences are protecting their brands because the ACC knows that as long as Miami keeps winning and Clemson keeps winning, they have a chance, not an ideal one, but they've got a chance at putting two teams in that college football playoff. And Miami going on the road and losing to Cal doesn't help those plans one bit. I know I'm getting a little tinfoil hatty here, but it's hard not to think about that kind of stuff. But to me, that's the biggest problem in college football. On the field, continuity of officiating. Nobody knows what targeting is and what it isn't, right? It seems as though some officiating crews just kind of go by their. We've heard all the explanations, and I don't know. It feels like this year more than other years because these networks pay these rules analysts, right? These former officials, they get paid, and they're like, all right, Mike Pereira, let's bring you in here. What do you think? Oh, yep, that's clearly this, that. You can see right there. And then they go to the field, and they're like, nope, there's no penalty. And it's like, well, Pereira, what are we paying you for? And again, I don't think it's Mike Pereira's fault. I don't think it's the rules analyst's fault. I think the fact that now that college football is coast to coast, it used to be, region, you knew you play a Pac-10/12 game, you breathe on a receiver, you're getting a pass interference. You know how I know that? Because I watched the end of the Beaver game. What was the consensus on? There was a couple of pass interference calls. Well, the one
that was horrid officiating in that game. Absolutely horrid.
The one in regulation. Can I speak from an unbiased position? The one at the end of regulation that essentially extended the drive to give, and then Colorado State would take the lead later, and then Oregon State would come back and tie it. Letter of the law, that was pass interference. You don't call it in that spot. You don't call it in that spot.
Well, I'll say this. There may have been pass interference on the final 4th and goal, but you do not call.
I don't think they could. If they threw a third flag, I don't think they could.
You can't call pass interference on 4th and goal. I just don't. Unless it is you tackle somebody and egregiously. Yeah. If it's close, it's bang, bang. You got to let them play. That's just my opinion.
Okay, so
Oregon State benefited from some crazy Colorado State mistakes flag-wise, too. I'll say that. But it really did seem, Justin, like we had some horrid officiating at Reser Stadium.
So there were three calls two calls and one no call. Colorado State, I believe it was a fourth down play, correct? Colorado State fourth down play, driving at the end of regulation, incomplete. Oregon State's going to get the ball, run it out. They call pass interference. And again, letter of the law, it was, but it was so ticky-tack that in that situation, I'm like, what? What are you throwing your flag for? And I believe Trent Bray said the same thing with some more colorful language on the broadcast. The second one is in overtime. Your guy tackled him. I mean, it was that one. That one I think you kind of had to call. The second one should have never even got there, to be perfectly honest. And then the fourth down play, if they had called another pass interference on Oregon State in that game, Trent Bray, I think, would have lost his mind. I think we would. I don't know if Trent Bray would be even. He'd still be yelling. He'd still be.
I mean, it was that part was frustrating because.
But you hear what I'm saying though about like continuity in officiating in college football? It's so bad.
It wasn't consistent, and I think there were a lot of Beaver fans who were like, "This game was nearly determined by the whistle." And our big takeaway was the good teams find a way to overcome bad officiating, and that's what the Beavers did in that matchup. I've seen 5 games. There have been some bad calls this year, but no, there was no question, Justin. This is the game where on both sides there were some flags. You're like, really? So, yeah, it looked more like a big Sky Crew out there to me.
I watch so much college football. I watch all the games. I do. I watch all. I know I'm an Oregon season ticket holder, but I record the games. I watch the games. It is my sports drug of choice. I love college football. I watch it all the time. Saturday was so fun. But I also watch it going that game is not being officiated the same as that game. And say what you will about the NFL. And I know less teams, more continuity of officiating, one head of officiating as opposed to a handful of conferences and all of that. But we can't figure out what targeting is. And it's the most punitive, I think that's the right way of saying it. It is the most punished of all the calls. Of all the calls that you need to get right, targeting is the one you have to get right because it's the biggest punishment. It's a 15-yard penalty and an ejection and a suspension. So if you have a call that holds the most punishment, you better get that one right. And it doesn't seem like they have any idea one way or the other. You know what I'm excited about, though? One thing we are going to get right, Blazers. They're opening up their season. That's right, October the 23rd, Blazers taking on the Golden State Warriors. Tickets are on sale right now. Go to trailblazers.com/tickets and plan your trip to Rip City to experience the opening night tip-off of the 2024/2025 Trailblazer basketball season at Moda Center. Basketball is back. And the Blazers are set to open up the season on the 23rd against the Golden State Warriors. We have got Joel Gunderson from Scoop Duck. He joins us next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, so we got the matchup set for Autzen Stadium on Saturday. Rumors swirling around the number of Ohio State fans that are going to be making the trek to Autzen Stadium. I have heard crazy numbers. Some of this might be actual truth. Some of these might actually be just a bit of a, of a urban legend. But rumor has it that dozens upon dozens of flights have been added from Columbus to Eugene, and that the scarlet wave of the Ohio State Buckeyes is about to descend upon Eugene. But you know what? You don't get that atmosphere, and you don't get that kind of hype around a game if you don't take care of business. Oregon has done that. Joining us now to talk about Friday's game against Michigan State, but most importantly, taking a look ahead at what might be the biggest game in the history of Autzen Stadium, our good friend from Scoop Duck, back on the big show, Joel Gunderson. Gundy, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Might be is a cute but inaccurate qualifier. This is the biggest game ever.
Well, first off, I know that you and we did not throw a block or a pass or catch a football, but I feel like just as kind of people in this, I want to congratulate both of us and all the fans out there. We did it, all right? We did it. We got through those first 5 games, and it's here. Both teams now back in the top 3. The anticipation that we had in August that maybe we thought might not be the same in September, it's now fully back. Both teams have taken care of business, so congratulations to everyone involved. Joel, we got here. Undefeated, 2 versus 3. This is what we thought it was going to be, even though Boise game was a little dicey. We made it. We got here. I'm proud of us.
We did, and if you can hear my voice, I was there Friday night, so I did my part, and still a little bit hoarse after the game, but no, we did, and it's funny because I went back and was talking to some people this week, and I said, go back to Sunday, September 8th or whatever the day was. I said, it was looking a little dicey, and at that point you probably could have snatched up a couple of Ohio State tickets for cheaper than you had been, but to have it go the way it did, to have Oregon clearly playing, I'd say, their best ball of the season. With still a lot of meat on the bone every week, but to be playing the way they are, and look, Ohio State has not looked like world beaters either. I think it's very clear that both programs have kept a lot under wraps, and I think both coaches thought we can get to this game without having to reveal too much of who we are. It may have backfired a touch on Oregon first couple weeks, but it didn't bite them. But we started to see it Friday night where they're running some new formations. They're running some not trick plays, but some little funky things that that they want to get on tape for Ohio State, so they have more to think about. So I think for both teams, they got there. Both teams are relatively healthy, considering you're about 5 games into the season. And it just worked out perfect. No one saw the Bama loss coming. No one saw the Tennessee loss coming. And I'm proud of the voters for moving Oregon ahead of Georgia. That's what it should have been all along. And it is. It sets up undoubtedly the biggest game of the year, the biggest game of the probably ever at Autzen. And now we have to sit for like 5 more days and wait for this to happen, which is going to be both torture and a lot of fun, because this is the great part of it. This is what I tell my kids when something fun's coming up. I'm like, enjoy the anticipation, because as soon as it's done, it's done. It goes by that quick. So enjoy the 5 days, read everything you can, listen to everything you can. And I thought Lanning absolutely nailed it on the post-game show when they asked him, what do you want from fans next week? He said, the moment you step onto campus, start screaming and do not stop until you're back in your car.
Well, I mean, it's like it's the old adage, right? What's the best part of vacation? It's the moment you leave the office, right? Yeah. Vacation is coming up. What's the best part of it? When I closed out my my emails and I walked out of the office going to it. Like, that's the best part of vacation. The drive to the airport is the best part of the trip. And so, yeah, when you look at what this week is going to be, and I'm very lucky because I work in a job where I get to talk about it all week long. While we're here, I've been trying to think of, is there anything comparable to this? Because I've been to nearly every game at Autzen Stadium. I'm, again, very lucky in my life. I've been to nearly every game at Autzen Stadium for the past, 25 to 30 years. And I'm trying to think, like, is there even a game in this stratosphere? I mean, I think of '09 Halloween, but that USC team wasn't what USC was. I think of even going back to like that USC game in '07 when it was number 5 versus number 9. But then obviously you put that whole '07 season in its context. Is there anything that you can think of in past Oregon games that have kind of even been in the stratosphere of this game?
This is why you and I connect, because I spent a lot of time thinking about this, the same topic. You know, the funny thing is, and feel free to fact check me, but I believe the highest rank-on-rank matchup in Autzen history was actually in '07, but it was against Arizona State.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, that doesn't have quite the buzz as Ohio State, no offense. You know, it really, I mean, when you factor in the ranking of both teams, the fact that this game has been hyped for a year, basically, you know, since last July when it was announced Oregon was going to Big Ten. The fact that Ohio State got to not come in 2020 because of the whole season and everything. The way Oregon went down in 2021 and got the win that no one expected. I mean, you go back to Michigan in '03, Oklahoma in '06. The difference with those is Oregon was still very new at coming into the program in the picture of the national scene back then. I don't believe Oregon was ranked going into either one of those games. Actually, Oklahoma, they may have been like top 20. But, you know, with the hype of this season, the belief that, you know, Oregon has national championship aspirations, clearly Ohio State does. I really don't. I don't think there's anything comparable. Probably the most comparable one in terms of just rank on rank, both teams being as good as they are, was probably B14 with Michigan State. And again, Michigan State just does not have the same aura as Ohio State. I mean, this is one of the top 3 all-time programs, never been to Autzen. Both teams are coming in healthy, like we've talked about. It is the biggest. It deserves all the hype. And I'm glad that it's coming on a weekend where there's other big games, because it just highlights and showcases how big this one is. Because despite the Red River shootout, Penn State, USC, all the other games, LSU, Ole Miss, everyone's talking about this game. And that is just a testament to both programs, but it's a testament to Oregon for staying on the radar when, you know, a lot of people kind of didn't know where they were going to go. And you had all these coaching changes. They are here. They're still here. They've made it. They righted the ship after a couple of rough weeks to start the season, and they're ready to go.
Joel Gunderson from Scoop Duck joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, a couple of let's do some nitpicking while we're here, and then we'll end with an awful lot of fun. I feel like all the concerns from the first 2 weeks seem to kind of get figured out around halftime of the Oregon State game. And really since then, the only thing that has been kind of a bugaboo for this Oregon team is Dillon Gabriel interceptions in the red zone, which apparently that came out of nowhere. And I went back and I looked because I'm like, Gabriel was not a guy that has been careless with the football. His freshman year, he threw 7 picks. That's the most he's ever thrown in a season. He's thrown 3 in 5 games this year. And as crazy as it sounds, Joel, and again, I'll preface this by it being nitpicky, the defense had one problem this year. That's Genty, and he's everyone's problem. The offensive line figured out the protection issues and the continuity, and then especially against Michigan State, the run blocking, because Jordan James had himself a day that Oregon needed. The defense, again, the defense has been lights out. Is it crazy to say that the biggest concern for Oregon right now is Dillon Gabriel? Again, I preface it by saying this is nitpicky.
I mean, you're correct that is the one concern now, and I don't think it's nitpicky at all, because when you bring in a 6-year senior, you bring him in with the thought of he's not going to put us in a position where mistakes are made. You know, his ceiling might not be as high as Bo Nix, and we've talked about that, but with his accuracy, with his decision making, is playing as many games as he has. That's the one thing you don't want him to be doing. He also has 2 fumbles this year. So His turnovers really have become the biggest concern. Now, there's 2 ways we can look at it, and we won't know. We'll find out. We'll have the answer by 7:30 Saturday night when the game's over. Is this just sort of him getting a little bit over his skis? And he talked about that in the postgame. You know, someone asked him, are you overthinking it? And he said no. And he said, I made a couple bad decisions, and the second half of the game last week, it was very clear. When he threw the ball, someone was open. There was no forced throws. There was nothing that you thought, oh boy, I wouldn't have done that. And, as he gets more comfortable with, and remember, that was his fifth game with this team. And I don't care how much off-season time you spend. It takes a while for this to grow. Look at Bo Nix his first year here. It took him time to get comfortable. The difference is from what he has this year to what Bo didn't have in 2022, and hopefully he's starting to figure this out, is he has an absolutely all-world defense, an all-world defensive line that, if I can just take care of the ball, put my team in a position to, even if we're getting a field goal, that's okay. Because, hey, we have a kicker now. We have two kickers. Just don't make the mistake. Put some points on the board and let my defense take care of business. And maybe it was one of those things where he just got it out of his system, and you hope as a guy who's experienced as he is, going into a game like he is now next Saturday, he is going to be smart enough to know, I cannot make those mistakes. He could get away with that against UCLA. He could very easily get away with that against Michigan State. He knows he cannot put himself in that spot against Ohio State. There's no room for error, as good as that team is, and that's the one thing you hope. As a guy who's played as much football as he has to know, just throw the ball away, tuck it and run, touchdown, first down, get down. Do not make any mistakes.
Joel Gunderson from Scoop Duck joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. And Joel, I find it quite fascinating that Ohio State coming and their offensive coordinator is going to be Chip Kelly. And what's interesting is that usually would probably be number one main headline, Chip Kelly as a coordinator coming back to Oregon. That's about story number 5 in this game. But I brought it up with Tyson Alger last week, and I'm going to ask you the same thing. Are we skewed in the way we view Oregon football because the ghost of Chip Kelly offense is still kind of hanging around? Because I'm looking at the way Oregon plays, and it is very clear that if you were to change their uniforms and, put an SEC uniform on there, you'd be like, oh, that's one of the best defenses in the country. Just looking at what the defense has done to everything except Genty. Like I said, that's an everybody problem. But are we just, as Oregon fans, just so used to the blur and up-tempo and the chip years and even the Bellotti years before that Oregon football is going to put up a ton of points and it's going to be fast and it's going to run an offense? When you look at it, started with Cristobal, but in the last 3 years, Dan Lanning has built an SEC team. They just happen to be wearing green and yellow, which is kind of weird for the football eye. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no. It was interesting being in the stadium Friday night, and we were fortunate enough to have pretty darn good seats and had a pretty good view of the defensive line. I've been going to Oregon games for now 29 years. I have never seen a defensive line performance like we saw, and I don't care who you're playing against, if it's Portland State or Alabama. When you play the opponent, if you play up to your standard, this is what Lanning talks about all the time. It's us versus them. We're playing ourselves. We hear it every week. It doesn't matter. I don't care how good or bad Michigan State's offensive line was. That was as good a performance as we've ever seen. They couldn't do anything. And I think it is hard for Oregon fans because, in the grand scheme of the sport of college football, we are a very, very young fan base.
Yeah.
This program has been relevant for 30 years. This is the 30th year of the Rose Bowl team. You talk about going down south to the Midwest. These programs have been doing this for 100 years where the investment has been there. So these other programs have gone through different iterations where we've only really known this program to be relevant, and it was built off the back of the offense. And for so many years, it was bend but don't break. It was third and Pelham, as we used to joke about. It was not built off of that, hey, well, man, the offense is struggling, but we know the defense is going to be fine. For a lot of times it was, we have to score 7 because they're going to score 6.5. It's new. I think fans are certainly coming around to it. And the ones that are, that place was loud Friday night. I don't know how it came across on TV, but when the offense from the first possession of the game, when the defense was in from the first possession of the game, that crowd was into it. And I think they're starting to realize hey, we have a dang good defense, and if we're helpful, we can really be a part of this, and so it'll slowly come around. I think the longer Lanning's here, as that becomes more and more the staple. I mean, Oregon's always going to have a good offense. It might not be 45 points a game every year, but also with college football and the new rules that have been implemented, scoring's down across the country. I think you're scoring 35, 38 points a game. I think that's really good, especially when your defense is giving up just north of 10. So, long gone are the days of the top teams all averaging 48, 49, 50 points because of the rules. There's more time, there's more running clock. There's less possessions. It's just kind of a byproduct of it. So I think Oregon's done a really good job of scheming to that and also acknowledging, like, hey, as long as our defense is out there being better than every offensive play, we're going to be just fine and let the offense come to it.
Joel Gunderson from Scoop Duck joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Obviously, the quarterback play, the defense, and everything else. This is what I am fascinated by heading into this game, Joel, because I'm sure there's probably a lot of Oregon fans going like, hey, that big transfer corner that we got from Washington, haven't really heard anything about him because in 5 weeks, I don't know if I can remember a cornerback that has just sheer presence shut down half of a field. Because teams are not throwing Muhammad's way. Well, Jeremiah Smith is coming in, and if you are a football fan, you don't know who Jeremiah Smith is, you better pay attention because he is unbelievable. And he's I think he's like 18 years old. He is unbelievable. I am the Jeremiah Smith Jabbar Muhammad matchup to where I'm assuming La'Poya is going to flip the field, do whatever he has to do to make sure that that's the matchup. And Ohio State can't ignore that half of the field. That's going to be the game within the game of maybe the thing I'm intrigued with the most in this matchup.
Yeah, if they try to keep Muhammad on one side of the field and just let Smith run around, it's going to be a very long day. I don't think there has been a player outside of a quarterback, like a skill position player, that has scared me more coming into Austin since Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
What Smith is it's between him and Ryan Williams at Alabama, it's really actually kind of fascinating to watch how these extremely young kids are coming in and completely dominating the sport. I mean, Jeremiah Smith could be a starter in the NFL right now, and no one would bat an eye. He's that physically gifted, but his ability, his hand-eye coordination is something that is just it's astounding when you watch him. And you're right. I mean, look, the funny thing is the one long play last week was Muhammad, not getting beat necessarily on the first drive of the game, but he's the one that gave up the pass. But even then, he was still in pretty good position. But you're right. I mean, we could probably count on two hands the amount of balls that have been thrown his way this year. His teams just know that's the guy we're not going after. So you're right. I mean, Oregon has to shadow him. Muhammad's going to be all over the field chasing him around. And look, he is truly one of those guys that you say, if he ends the game with 8 catches for 74 yards and 1 touchdown, you take that 8 days a week and run to the bank. He's going to get his yards. Ohio State's going to get their yards. They passed for 450 yards against Oregon when they played in 2021. I mean, this is, Ryan Day is a very good play caller. Chip Kelly is now there to help them along. They're going to get their yards and they're going to get points. That's the thing. For Oregon, it's all about, can you keep them in front of you? Make them earn it. Make Will Howard be the guy that has to beat you. And if he has to use Jeremiah Smith, he's going to. But again, just keep him under control. If he goes for 12 catches and 160 yards, you don't have a chance because that means that everything's clicking. So I think James Crepey tweeted out too. He's like, that matchup of Muhammad versus Smith is absolutely worth every penny you would spend to go in the game on that matchup alone because, yeah, you're right. This is why you bring in the guy. Muhammad is the guy that helped a lot in beating you twice last year, and you brought him in for this exact type of matchup. So it's going to be fascinating to watch, and you just hope that he seems to rise to the occasion in big games like he did last year. Well, this is a pretty big game as far as we know.
Well, Joel, I spent a pretty penny to go to this game, and I did not sell my tickets. Chad Doing thinks I'm a psychopath because I did not sell my tickets. Brendan, he looks at me with judgment every time I bring it up, and I said, "There's no way I'm missing this game. Don't care if they get blown out. I am not missing this game." So I think of all the people that I've had on the show this last couple of weeks, you have got to be on my side on this, and have got to appreciate the fact that I could have turned over a lot of money for some rich Ohio State fan flying in on probably a very nice jet. But instead, I am holding the line, Joel. I am staying in my seats, and I shall not give them up.
you in life, there's only a certain amount of first time things. And this is a first time thing, and you have to be there. I told my dad when we left the game Friday night, I said, I'm proud of us. Well, and by that I meant him. I said, we walked out of that stadium with all that electricity and all that buzz going into next week, and we didn't just like impulsively buy tickets for next weekend because it's truly one of those things where, you know, obviously financially, a lot of people cannot afford to go there next week. It's extremely unique in its situation, but
it's so much
you
money,
are lucky
Joel.
enough to have a ticket.
It's so much money. It's so much money.
It's so much money. It is. But you know what? Just go and experience it. And as long as Oregon's not down 35-0 at halftime, it's going to be worth your money. So just go and have fun. Money comes, money goes.
Yeah.
That is something you'll always remember.
Exactly. There you go. Joel Gunderson. You can follow him on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at JGundy85. You can read his stuff on Scoop Duck, and you hear him from time to time on this particular program. Hey, Joel, have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the week, and we'll look forward to talking again soon, bud.
Sounds good. Hang on. Buckle up. We're almost there.
There we go. Joel Gunderson. We wrap up hour number 2 next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up hour number 2. Stuff we saw on the internet, as we mentioned, I don't know if it was a historic day on Saturday, but it was certainly entertaining as you saw Alabama, Tennessee, Missouri, USC, and Michigan all go down in college football. Miami got another scare, but the upset of the day, the upset of the season, and a lot of people are saying it's one of the biggest upsets in the history of the SEC. As Alabama has lost to Vanderbilt before. It has happened. Not very often, but Alabama has lost to Vanderbilt before. But I don't know if they've ever had the number 1 ranking, the Heisman Trophy frontrunner, fresh off of a epic win against Georgia and solidifying that Kalen DeBoer was the right hire, the right successor. Don't worry. No Saban, no what? And Nick Saban, I think he was on Pat McAfee last year, mentioned that every place in the SEC is tough to go on the road. He said, except Vanderbilt. And it's true, because Vanderbilt is right there in Nashville. Vanderbilt does not have a rabid fan base. And the rest of the SEC, just like most of like Texas, all ends up in Dallas. And you play a game in Dallas, there's going to be Texas, A&M, SMU, Baylor. Like, everybody's in Dallas. Well, a lot of people in the South are in Atlanta, and a lot of people in the South are in Nashville. And so when you go to Nashville to face off against Vanderbilt, as you saw in that game, it looked like it was, I think 60-40 Bama fans is being generous. I think it was 70-30. It looked like it was 70-30 Bama fans, so much so as we were watching it, my wife was like, is this game in Alabama? I go, no, that's at Vanderbilt, because all the Alabama fans buy all the tickets and they make a weekend of it in Nashville, and like, we'll kick the doors off of Vanderbilt. We'll have fun in Nashville. We'll go down to Aldean's and have some drinks. And whoa, excuse me?
Well, if we go to Aldean's, we got to keep the chairs on the roofs.
No, that's Eric Church's.
Oh, sorry.
That's a Chiefs.
Sorry, got to keep the chairs on the roof.
Yeah,
so.
We should just keep the chairs on the roof at all the places.
But this is something absolutely fascinating. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Justin. So as you know, the goalpost made it into the Cumberland River.
Yes, so the Vanderbilt fans ripped down the goalposts.
And walked it 3
miles. I mapped it. Because I was like, I've been lucky enough. I've been to Nashville once in my life. Now, I know where the Titans play is right across the river from Lower Broadway, that's like the Vegas Strip of Nashville is right. Lower Broadway. And I'm like, but they weren't playing in I think it's Nissan Stadium. I don't know what it's called now. It was called Nissan Stadium back then. But they weren't playing there. They were playing an event. And so I'm like, where is it? And I'm like, that's a trek. And there is some unbelievable videos of tourists in Nashville going onto Lower Broadway to see a bunch of drunk Vanderbilt students, I'm assuming they were drunk, carrying a goalpost from Midtown campus 3 miles through Lower Broadway, past Tootsie's, past the stage, past Aldean's, past Chiefs, and then we're going to throw it in the river. Now, that's what Tennessee did. Was it 2 years ago?
They did it to the...
They beat Alabama.
Apparently, that's just what you do.
So, here's my question. I have been told the last time the Autzen Stadium goalposts were ripped down was 1989. Oregon beat UCLA, solidified them a bowl game, and they ripped down the goalposts. And it threw off because, Brennan, as you know, state championship football games, high school state championship games, had to be rescheduled because they used to play them at Autzen, and they're like, we don't have any goalposts. They ripped them down, and that year, Oregon would then go on to win it against Oregon State in Civil War, and they would go and play in the Poulon Weed Eater Independence Bowl. But they ripped down the goalposts, and then they put in new goalposts, and the urban legend was these things go down so far, there's no way you can tear these down. Rumor has it
Not
that
anymore.
that the Oregon goalposts that are in there at Autzen
right now.
cannot be torn now. And I've seen them try. I saw in 94 when Kenny Wheaton's going to score. I watched it on TV. I watched it the next week. They beat Arizona, which was a big – and fans got on the goalpost. They would shake. Never came down.
Dude, if Oregon beats
It
Ohio
never came-
if Oregon beats Ohio State, I want them in the Willamette River. I want that happen. I want that to happen. Make it happen, Duck fans.
Well, I'm trying to think.
Now, I'm not encouraging violence, so Oregon, do not come after me for encouraging. You know, we like to come after people if they say go do things, and then other people go do things.
So you disavow violence.
Yes, I do.
But good, clean goalpost fun.
And
I don't think they can be taken down.
So-
Like I said, I've seen them try.
So I looked this up too, Justin, for perspective. It would it's about 1.5 miles from Reser to downtown Corvallis. So if you were to take it from Reser to down by
Well, you got to take it to the Peacock. That's where that's where
so
you
that
got to take
way's
it.
that
Like if
way's
all
like
the
a-
places you're going to take the goalposts, you got to take it down
so
to the
here's the
Peacock.
interesting thing with this real quick is so I'm assuming pieces of it broke off along the way. Vanderbilt officially, Justin, put up an auction this morning and had 4-inch pieces of the field goal upright and 8 pieces of the 8-inch pieces of the field goal crossbar. The 4-inch pieces went for $1,000. They were gone within an hour. The 8-inch pieces went for $5,000. They were gone within 2 hours.
All right, question.
Vanderbilt's got rich alums. I know that.
Do
but
you believe the authenticity of that?
I question it because I think I'd just go get in the river myself with a little saw.
I
and
do
go,
too. Like, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, I'd go cut a little piece. I'd
So-
go swim in the river. It'd probably be
Some
fine.
very
Just-
entrepreneurial student, if he was smart, goes to Home Depot, buys himself a 4-inch piece of metal pipe, cuts it into
Makes it yellow.
and some yellow spray paint, and go, there you go.
A piece of the pie.
I'm serious.
Well said.
Uh,
Well said. They also have some crazy other stuff, too. Like, they basically, Justin, have realized this is a huge opportunity for Vanderbilt. They're auctioning off the pylons. They're auctioning
Yeah.
off every game ball.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, and you were obviously in Reser when this was going
I
on.
was. Everyone was freaking out. They're like,
Va-
Vanderbilt's going to win.
Vanderbilt Stadium has been under construction for 4 years. Like it's still under construction.
4 years?
Google Vanderbilt
I thought
Stadium
Reser was a
construction. No,
Wow.
it's way worse than Reser. It's still it's still under construction. So they could use the cash, I think. All right, coming up, we have got a full third hour of football talk. We have got a make or miss. We've got an RCM mailbag. Blazer injury news. We haven't even got to that yet. Blazer injury news before a game has even been played. So we'll dive into all that third hour next. 620 Rip City Radio.
8 a.m. on a Monday morning. Brendan Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings. The Oregon Ducks cruised past Michigan State 31-10 on Friday night, handing Jonathan Smith yet another loss at Autzen Stadium, where he remains winless for those of us who are counting. The Beavers, meanwhile, up in Corvallis on Saturday, had a flair for the dramatic, taking down Colorado State 39-31 in double OT. And over in NFL news, the Seattle Seahawks dropped their second straight game, this time at Lumen Field, 29-20 to the Giants. Didn't see that one coming. Just caught up with Joe Gunderson on the show. Make sure to check out that interview at ripcityradio.com. We got Make or Miss, RCL Medweg, a whole lot more. Hour 3.
Hey, welcome back to the big show, everybody. It is Rip City Mornings. I am your host, Justin Myers. Hopefully, you're all having a fantastic Monday. I mean, unless you are a fan of certain teams, what a weekend. What a weekend in college football. You saw, five of the top 11 go down. Miami nearly went down, almost a banner win for Justin Wilcox. Now a tough loss for the California Golden Bears after having game day there and everybody showing up. Well, game day stays on the West Coast because they are going to be in Eugene. Also, the Josh Pate College Football Show is going to be in Eugene. We're efforting trying to get Josh on the show this week. We'll figure it out. Get him on the show. So obviously the eyes of college football now solely focused on Eugene, Oregon. And, going back to the conversation I was having with Joel Gunderson, I went back and I looked at the numbers because sometimes my own memory starts playing tricks with me. And number 2 versus number 3 has never happened, obviously, at Autzen Stadium. There's been Oregon had played Auburn in the national title game. That was 1 versus 2. I think Oregon played in 2011, a neutral site game against LSU, which might have been a better matchup rankings-wise, but never at Autzen Stadium has there been a matchup of this type of ranking, whereas number 2 versus number 3. The biggest matchup in, I believe, ranking in Oregon football history, you got to go back to 2007, and as nuts as it sounds, it wasn't USC that year in 2007. It was Arizona State. That was also the craziest year in college football history. So that year, Oregon was number 11. They played number 6 Cal. College game day was there. They lost. Deshaun Jackson is so good. Oregon would bounce back. They would win 3 in a row to climb back up into the polls to be number 4 in the country, and they would face Arizona State, who was number 6 in the country. That, for Autzen Stadium, I believe that is, in terms of highest ranking Oregon, highest ranking opponent, that's the best it's ever been, and that was 2007, and that was number 4 versus number 6, and it was also a weird circumstance, and Brendan will remember this because Oregon State was even kind of in the thick of it there in 2007 because Cal beat Oregon. Cal skyrockets all the way up to number 2 in the country to lose to the Beavs at home.
Such a great game.
Yeah.
Remember, like it was yesterday.
And that propelled Oregon back up into the top 5. And
remember when Versus was a college football channel?
Do I remember? How could I ever forget?
That game was on Versus, man.
Could I ever forget the Versus Sports Network?
Yeah, that was the.
I believe it used to be the Outdoor Life channel.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. And
then like all they would play sports-wise was the Tour de France.
Well, or I just remember like that channel. Like you'd be like, okay, and Oregon State Cal's over. Here comes duck hunting. Like that.
It is funny we got all snooty and made fun of the CW. It's like, dude, Versus.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Like,
I mean,
come on.
Yeah, and with that, Justin, like that was. It's funny you bring that up because Oregon State fans, even to me to this day, will hang on to that for years because you look at it as if Cal had won that day, because LSU had lost, right, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So Cal would have been number one
It
team.
would have been the number one team in the country.
So
yes.
in Oregon State fans' minds, they beat the number one team in the country 2 years in a row.
Hey,
Right? Not bad, right?
do what you got to do.
So I said Mike Riley had his moment in the sun, and just couldn't win the game against that team out west.
So Oregon, Arizona State, 2007. That was number 4 versus number 6. 2014, Michigan State at Autzen Stadium. That was number 3 versus number 7. That was the Marcus Mariota kind of coming out party.
Kirk Cousins or Connor Cook? No, Connor Cook. That's Connor Cook. Yeah, Kirk Cousins is already gone.
Yeah, it was Connor Cook. Look at you. Don't forget about Tyler O'Connor, who would, I think, come in and mop-up duty. But, yeah, Connor Cook. But that was number 3 versus number 7. But it was also Michigan State, which isn't Ohio State. And I think Joe Gunderson, who we talked about last hour, put it perfectly. This game kind of, for Oregon fans, is 4 years in the making. What are you talking about, Justin? Let me tell you, a little trip down memory lane. 2019. Justin Herbert, they win the Rose Bowl. They beat Utah. Herbert goes off to the NFL. Cristobal looks to be, at that particular time, building something. It's like, all right, after, the 2 years before with Cristobal, where you're like, oh, man, I'm not quite. And then, boom. Is he handcuffing Herbert? What's going on? Nope. Oregon wins it. They beat Utah. They go to the Rose Bowl. They win the Rose Bowl. One of the few times that Oregon's ever won the Rose Bowl in its history, and that was 2019. And in 2020, remember, Ohio State was supposed to come to Autzen Stadium, I believe, week 2. Week 2, Oregon, Ohio State. And I want to say Ohio State, did they lose to LSU in the first round in 2019? Did Joe Burrow? Did Joey Burrow beat? Because wasn't that the whole thing? Because Burrow was from Ohio State? I might be making it up. But
Yeah, no, they beat Oklahoma and Clemson in the playoff.
Okay. What did Ohio State do in 2019? They won. They were in the playoff. They must have lost to Clemson because Oregon played Wisconsin. So
They
Ohio
lost
State.
to Clemson.
Okay. So Ohio State was in the playoff. Oregon had just won the Rose Bowl. They're facing week 2, 2020. What could go wrong? Worldwide global pandemic. Everybody stuck inside, banging pans at 7 o'clock. You guys remember that, right? Remember we would make noise at 7 o'clock? Remember we did that for like a week? Remember Tiger King? Remember we did that? We watched The Last Dance like it was actual real sports. And so that game got canceled. Because even in the spring of 2020, and everybody's like, this pandemic, what's going on? Are we still going to play football? Are we still going to play football? And by summer, it was like, nope. We ain't playing football. That ain't happening. Well, maybe, kind of, in a weird way. 6 games? How's that sound? Well, first off, remember Pac-12 was like, oh, we'll play in the spring. And everybody's like, no, we won't. And so they're like, okay, so we're not playing in the spring. We're going to play.
Also funny how
we're only going to play 6 games.
Again, I'm not going to say anything about player safety is funny, but I'll just say this. Observation, not a criticism. The Pac-12's entire reason why they delayed as long as they did was no other than one word that we all learned how to pronounce. Myocarditis.
Oh, yeah, can't forget about myocarditis.
Do you know how many times I've heard myocarditis as related to like very much how Justin says they found some random Arizona State professor who told them about the media deal. Mm-hmm. They found some random doctor, probably in Berkeley, who was like, well, there's a 1% chance this can happen, and if that happens, we're done.
And as it turns out, everybody played in the SEC, and they were all just fine. Last I saw, Trevor Lawrence, he's he's not great at quarterback, but
he's better yesterday.
He's better yesterday. You're right.
Well,
better.
But you know what I mean.
Like, but the entire SEC played, and
it just shows Larry Scott's lack of a backbone and why we are where we are now.
There's a lot of factors going on in there, too. Something to do with swing states, you know what I mean, and other things.
Agreed.
But we don't need to dive into that.
Agreed. You're right. There were many factors, though.
To
say that it was one thing
is the reason why
silly.
Some states played and others did. Hey. Either way, point being was Oregon, Ohio State wasn't happening. 2020. Remember, it was supposed to happen at Autzen. It was then being billed as the biggest non-conference game to ever come to Autzen Stadium because Oregon was coming off of a Rose Bowl win. Who knows where they would have been ranked? Obviously, they would have been replacing Justin Herbert. Ohio State was coming off of a playoff. That game gets canceled. 2021, Oregon goes to the Horseshoe, puts it on them. Oregon gets a huge win against Ohio State. Conference realignment. Oregon's in the Big Ten now. Both teams in the top 3. So, yeah, when you look back at some of these games, and these are all fantastic games. It's actually what I love about this week, especially, is that we get to go back and be like, man, what about those games at Autzen Stadium and those atmospheres and everything else? Nothing compares to what is going to be happening on Saturday. And the reason because is, 1, 2 versus 3 has never happened. Closest is 3 versus 7 or 4 versus 6. That's the closest. But the other part of it is this is a 4-year anticipation. It's supposed to happen in 2020. And I think that's why the Big Ten scheduled it this way, is that because when the Big Ten created this new West Coast wing of the conference, they had to, throw the schedule back in the Schedule Maker 3000 and compute out. And it's like, yeah, you got to give Oregon that return date. Boom, here we have it. So the rankings, the anticipation, and then also kind of on top of it, more than a 4-year anticipation of just Ohio State showing up, but also with what happened to Oregon football last year, with what happened to Ohio State football last year, and both teams feeling like they were national championship caliber teams, but neither team could get over the hump of their arch rivals because Ohio State couldn't beat Michigan and Oregon couldn't beat Washington. Both of those things kept, and then you looked ahead to the schedule. Like, man, this is it. This is the game. What a week. What a week. And again, it's all set up because what was supposed to be a dull week of college football. Remember that? We talked about it on Friday, Brendan. Slate's not very good. Doesn't look very like there's one top 25 matchup, and that's just Texas A&M and Missouri. Whoa. Okay. Slate's so bad they had to go to Berkeley for College Game Day. Bama, Tennessee, Missouri, USC, Michigan. All go down. All right, coming up, we've got a special third-hour edition of Make or Miss. But how about this? You want to win $1,000? That's a make. Cash for the 6 man. That's what we're doing here at Rip City Radio. We want to give you $1,000. So make sure you listen for the keywords each and every weekday. That's today. From 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., you're in the window. On the 15s, very, very close. For a chance to win $1,000 13 times a day. All the details at ripcityradio.com. Special third-hour edition of Make or Miss next, 620 Rip City Radio. Don't forget, coming up very soon, October the 23rd, the Blazers are opening up the season against the Golden State Warriors. That's right. Tickets are on sale now. Visit trailblazers.com/tickets and plan your trip to Rip City to experience the opening night tip-off of the 2024-2025 Trailblazer basketball season at Moda Center. Basketball is back. Let's go Blazers as they tip off the season against the Golden State Warriors.
That's not hard, right? Starting with Steph Curry off a fresh, like off season, like just starting with Steph, like that's not tough, right?
Every team in the West is going to be tough. I mean, I think we were talking about it with Fentress.
Sure.
Who in the West does not have a guy on their team that is maybe not better than anybody on the Blazers right now? And again, Blazers are rebuilding, and I still believe this is the right move. And the Blazers are going to have some nights where they look really fun, but
nobody. The closest would be Markkanen.
Houston?
Although they've got multiple players on max contracts.
I'm throwing.
No, me too.
I'm throwing pasta against the wall.
I'd say Utah minus Markkanen. That's.
Did you ever throw pasta against the wall? See if it stuck?
No, always just a metaphor.
I did it once to try to get a laugh. My mom did not find it funny.
I would assume so. Yeah, kind of like I was never part of the like. Well, this will be a fun lead in to make or miss.
Yes.
But I was never, as a kid, Justin, like in elementary school, because by the time you get to like high school, no one does it. But in elementary school, at our cafeteria, there was like a giant ledge, right?
Uh-huh.
Probably like 100 feet in the air. And there were like 3 or 4 lunch boxes up there. And I remember when I was there being like, and they go, "Oh, that was the food fight a couple years ago."
And they're still up there.
And it was like one of those like legends that you were for the whole 3 years I was at that elementary school where it's like, "Oh, is today gonna be the day we'll have a food fight?" Well, never happened. I was never around a food fight. But honestly, I kind of wish I would have been just once.
I think food fights only happen on TV shows and
Okay.
movies. I don't know if they actually
Well, I have
happen
proof, Justin.
in real. Well, you have a story that you heard. I don't.
You call me a liar?
I'm not calling you a liar. I'm saying that I, like you, also heard tale of great food fights of years past. Yet,
But was there evidence to hold it up? How else do you get a lunch box 100 feet up in the air?
That's a good question.
And no, like
That's a good
I'm not
question.
saying I know either, but all throughout that though, Justin, I was always like, man, it would have been fun, just like one time,
Just one time.
just like have your parents get called. Yeah, Brendan got in a food fight.
Well, it's one of those things. Where
Better than a physical fight, right?
to have a food fight, you have to everybody's got to be culpable. You know what I mean? If everybody is in on it, nobody can get in trouble, right? They can't put the entire school in detention. But
Exactly.
if 3 or 4 people do it and they're like, it was him, it was him,
It was
them,
him, and him.
then they're like, okay, great. Now you got Saturday school and you've got. Did you ever get Saturday school?
Nearly. But it was only like to make up a test kind of a thing. Ended up doing it other ways, but
Okay, what worst punishment you ever got from a school perspective? Worst punishment you ever got?
detention once, middle school. Yeah, detention once,
Such a
middle
good
school.
kid.
I got into a little bit of a tussle in PE class with.
Well, I mean, it's just gonna happen, probably with dodgeball or something. I would
Yeah,
assume.
I think there was something going on me and this kid named Joey.
Joey.
And, yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. I just remember it was like all of a sudden we're both up at each other's grill. So, and then we were told to go spend the rest of the day in the office. The office said, "We don't want you here," and then sent us down to detention. So, but yeah, I mean, it was so, let me put it this way. Detention was in the wood shop teacher's shop.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
you're like, oh, this is so
Okay.
bad for 30 minutes.
I do want to get to make or miss because we got some stuff to dive into.
But no one wanted in-school ISS. That was bad. In-school suspension. That was bad.
Saturday school was
But
the
Saturday
worst.
school was bad, too.
Saturday school was the worst. I got that once, maybe twice. What was your detention? Because if you got detention, let me tell you how different life was in the 90s. In middle school, if you got in trouble enough to get what was called detention, you would get a yellow slip of paper. Yellow. So when like the teachers would get like their mail, they would be like, this goes to Justin Myers. It's a big yellow slip of paper, and everyone knows that's detention. So it's like a big giant, here's your invitation to detention. And you would have to go into this room during lunch and sit there for half of lunch. And then if you sat quietly, you were then able to leave, eat your lunch, and you would finish your lunch right about when lunch is over. You didn't get to go outside. You didn't get to play basketball. You didn't get to do any of the fun stuff at lunch. So that was our detention. What was yours? Was it similar?
I forget really how it was because, again, just you started to get into the stretch of time where, I mean, to be honest, now I don't think they punish kids at all from what I've heard. But this was the stretch where it's like, no, we got to give them 1 warning, 2 warnings, 3 warnings, then we'll give you detention. And like, that's where it was the, like, they love to do at our school. It's called think sheets and referrals, which were, you know.
Is that the thing you had to take
home for mom and dad?
We had a referral, and that was the worst.
And if you got 3
I would gladly do a month of detention before I ever had to take something to be signed. But again, my parents were teachers.
Just
so
to show how.
Like, they knew all of it anyways before I even got it.
Just to show how just brown nosy Sherwood was. Justin, they called it a think sheet, so you'd go home and think about your bad behavior.
You'd think about it a little bit.
Think about your bad behavior. And I'm like, and I remember there was at least once or twice where I went home and I'm like, yeah, Mom, can you just give me the benefit of the doubt on this one? This was a, BS reason for talking talking in class.
Almost all of mine, shouldn't surprise anybody, is talking in class.
Yeah.
Got into a physical altercation once.
Did you win?
No.
See, I didn't win mine either, Justin.
Willie
Joey
James
got the best of me.
Willie James hauled off and punched me, and I'd never been punched in the face before, and I was like, this is not what I anticipated.
So you weren't like the Hulkster. You weren't channeling your inner Hulk Hogan.
See, that's what I thought. I thought fights were going to be like Karate Kid, WWF, and Rocky. And let me tell you, when Willie James, who shows up to 6th grade with chest hair, punches you in the face, it's a different world. And you learn, maybe don't run your mouth as much. He popped. Oh, man. And I was thrown off. But, yeah, got into a little physical tussle, which is funny because, like, I'd known Willie James, like, my entire life. And it was just.
It's always funny how that works.
And then you get to, like, 6th grade and probably a girl involved. And, probably trying to impress some girl. Anyways, got a day's suspension. Mom,
that was bad.
And and that was in middle school, and of course my mom was a teacher at middle school, so yeah,
that
wasn't invited to sit at home with open arms. Was given a list of tasks to do.
I bet. Well, and that was the interesting thing with that was like that's when they started to. Maybe even when you were there, Justin, there was a time when schools were like, all right, this kid did something wrong. They're not our problem. You're suspended. Go away. Then they started doing the in-school suspension.
Yeah, we had that too.
Which was like, hey, no.
You still got to come to
And I just remember kids were like, if I'm going to do something bad, I'm going home. Yeah. I'm not going to sit in your office for 3-4 days, which there were kids who had to do ISS too. I mean, yeah, like I said. And nowadays, Justin, I think it's probably more like, have you had time to think? Okay, yeah, come on back to the circle.
And then in high school, you would get Saturday school, which you show up Saturday. Like that's.
Did you have to do it?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Yeah. Nope. Never was going to allow that to happen. You want to know why, Justin? Because I went to Beaver games on Saturdays.
Well, this was not during football season.
Okay, fair.
I think it was springtime or something. I don't know.
There was one time it was close.
And it was like a cumulative. I didn't do one thing terribly wrong. It was just like a cumulative of like you got.
For me, it was
you ran your mouth here, and you got a notification here, and you were late here, and blah, blah, blah. It's like you get Saturday school, and I'm like, 4 hours, 7 a.m. Saturday morning, 4 hours.
Yeah, like it was something crazy where like I missed.
You would get a break every hour, like you were in the hole.
Yeah,
Shawshank.
No, it's true.
They're like, go walk around. You have a 5-minute break to stretch your legs.
Yeah, I think ultimately
what a time.
How that ended up happening, Justin. I think I didn't go to I think I missed a test It may like stayed home, missed a test, may or may not have been a test in math that I was or was not prepared for. I think the statute of limitations probably gone now. So I may have skipped that day knowing a test was coming. And then it was, well, you have to come make it up at Saturday school. And then I remember finagling something during somebody's lunch, office hours during lunchtime. Because I'm like, I got a Beaver game to go to on Saturday. And what's changed in 15, 20 years, Justin? Not much.
Yeah, you get a nice little card from Vice Principal Mr. Withers would be like, yep, you are cordially invited to show up 7 a.m. Saturday. It didn't say that, but it felt like it might as well. You are cordially invited to get to make or miss. Here we go.
This morning, Justin, no one is more irritated than the Nashville Fish and Wildlife Service that has to pull that goalpost out of the river.
I mean, I guess if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you don't care. You'd probably be kind of pumped to pull it out of the river. That's the thing with Vanderbilt, though, that's probably got to be tough.
Probably very few Vanderbilt fans.
Yeah. And because you're in Nashville and probably a lot of Bama. Imagine you work for
Nashville Parks
I don't
and
know
Rec.
what county. I think they're in Franklin County.
Or Nashville Parks and Rec, even.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
You work for the Parks and Rec department there in Nashville. And let's say, like most people, you're a transplant to said Nashville. And let's just say you might have grown up a Bama fan. Talk about insult to injury as you got to go now fish that. Why do they throw in the river?
Must be just a new thing.
Why would you throw it in the river?
Like I said, if Oregon were to beat Ohio State this weekend, I'd be disappointed if they're not carried to the left.
Like I said, I don't think you can get those down.
Okay, so that being said, I'll throw this out there. Again,
I know Oregon State's can come down because I've seen them down twice.
Yeah, I mean Oregon State, if they,
I don't know what the new ones are, but I remember.
So here's my problem.
99 was the first year of Dennis Erickson. They beat Arizona, ripped them down.
So my problem with this is, I was there the night they beat number 1 USC. Mm-hmm. You are never going to top that, and the fact that they didn't pull them down that night has me disappointed in Beaver fans.
Okay, I think the difference might be, though, once you get them ripped down, I think schools are like, all right, we're, like I said, 89 Oregon fans ripped down Autzen Stadium goalposts. New ones were put in. Kenny Wheaton's going to score a game. Couldn't get them down. They tried.
How hard?
So there were so many people. There's my buddy. My buddy has a picture of him on the goalpost after the Arizona game, which was the next week. There have been so many attempts to try to tear those things down. You can't get them because I think and I would bet you after the 99 season, which is when Reeser's goalposts went down, I think they put in and it's an engineering school, right? They probably reinforced those bad boys. I don't know how far down into. I don't know if you can get them down. Now, what I think you could get the uprights off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's what I think.
Maybe get the uprights off, but I don't think you can get them completely ripped out of the ground.
So my thing with that is, it's just physical math. Eventually, you apply enough force to an object Isaac Newton, right? So eventually, you put enough people on a goalpost. Maybe the foundation doesn't. Maybe it's the spine that snaps, right? Because you're right. If they go 20, 30 feet down, that part might be secure. But again, I also feel like Justin right now, Scott Barnes or Rob Mullins is listening to us going, shut up. Shut up.
Shut your mouth.
Shut up. Shut up, you two. So we don't condone any of this. If anyone wants to take matters into their own hands, be my guest. But Justin, because I saw Vanderbilt got the $100,000 bill from Greg Sankey this morning. I don't want that bill showing up to Rip City mornings because you and I can't pay that.
Also, it kind of goes to show you just how long it's been since Vanderbilt's actually had a legitimate win at home.
That too.
Because I think those goalposts haven't been in danger for probably 40 years.
At least.
Because
James Franklin, people love to forget the James Franklin era at Vandy. It was.
I know, but I don't think you had a win like that. Not like against number 1 Alabama.
But just.
And the fact that it was 70% Bama fans in the stands.
Yeah, filibuster for me for a second. I
Yeah.
want to see what James Franklin's best win was at Vanderbilt.
So what I'm saying is I feel like those goalposts went down fairly easy. I don't know. Maybe like they say, SEC, it just means more. Maybe they've got it figured out and they know the like you said, the correct weight to goalpost ratio, angle, whatever to get them down.
I just think eventually it would, like anything would snap.
But I just say, like, I vividly remember when the goalposts came down in '89. Because I remember thinking that is the coolest thing of all time. Then I believe they were walked across the Autzen footbridge and taken down to campus. And again, I don't know if these are lies or whatever, but the rumors were that there was a fraternity that took one of the goalposts, cut them up, and turned them into beer mugs. Now that might be urban legend, but that would still be pretty awesome.
So James Franklin never beat a ranked team.
Goalposts have been safe for 40 years.
Sorry, excuse me. Nope, I apologize. I lied to you. Last year before he left for Penn State, they beat number 15 Georgia at home, 31-27. This is back in 2013.
Yeah, and that's not the Georgia that we know right now.
No.
So those goalposts have been fairly safe for about 50 years.
Yeah, that was Mark Wright, Georgia. So very different, Georgia. But yeah, I mean,
it looked like not a lot of students took those goalposts down.
And I'm pretty sure, let's see. Yeah. Okay, Justin. So Vanderbilt Stadium just celebrated its 100-year anniversary. Okay. You know, it's when I see something like this, Justin, that I say it's almost, I'm not a, how do I put this? I am a slightly superstitious person as far as like.
Just a little stitious?
Yeah. As
not
far as like just like things like the natural order of like things meant to be. Justin, in a week, they're going to celebrate their 100-year stadium anniversary.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the fact that it happens this year, like that's kind of cool. Like that's.
I mean, it is kind of cool.
Like I get it's random and all that, but I'm like, little magic.
But also their stadium is like the biggest embarrassment in the SEC because the stadium has been their stadium has been under construction for I think like 2 or 3 seasons, and like you score into one of those end zones, you kick the extra point, and it's like, oh, that's a construction zone. You got to get a hard hat to go get that football. All right, we got. Do we keep throwing them in the river though?
I also think it's
the last 2 years. I believe it's both the Cumberland River has got Vanderbilt goalpost and Tennessee Volunteer goalposts. I think it's the same river, right?
This isn't fair because they obviously just another fascinating thing to show Vanderbilt's fan base. This is not fair, Justin, because you can let people on the field. But would it surprise you if I told you there are 3 concerts that have outsold Vanderbilt's highest attended football game at the same stadium?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Nick Saban said it last year when he was the coach still at Alabama, is that every place in the SEC is tough to play except Vanderbilt because it's the only place where you're going to have more fans than the other team.
Could you guess? Let's fun. Could you guess the bands? And I'll give you the years.
Give me a year.
1994.
1990.
They put 42,000, so Vanderbilt holds 40.
Yeah.
So they put 42,094.
94.
This one's tough. I don't know if you
Diamond Rio. No. They were big in 94, though.
I'll go.
What about Alabama, the band Alabama? I'm going to go all country because it's in Nashville.
It's rock. I'll say this, rock. Give you a hint.
Rolling Stones?
That's the next one. Rolling Stones, 97. They got 46,000 in there.
Okay, start me up.
With Sheryl Crow as the opening act. Not bad.
Tuesday Night Music Club.
94, Pink Floyd.
All right, yeah, I would have never gotten that.
And then this one should be pretty obvious. Like maybe the biggest Irish rock band.
U2?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, U2.
They put 47,000 for U2. And I'm like, and Vanderbilt's record for attendance is 40, Justin.
Boom.
So 3 concerts have drawn more than their own football team.
Maybe we'll see what happens.
I'm just saying that's a little concerning, man.
How long do they have to get those goalposts up? while we look at that, I do want to let everyone know that we are giving away tickets each and every Tuesday. That's right. Tomorrow is Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. It's red hot and rolling on Rip City Radio. Listen to The Drive, Rip City Drive, that is, with Chad and Dwight every Tuesday from 3 to 6 for your chance to win tickets to a Trailblazer home game. Every Tuesday for your chance to win. You can also get your single game tickets right now at trailblazers.com. It's Trailblazers Ticket Tuesday from Rip City Radio.
They're at Kentucky next week, Justin, so they're all good. Whole week to get it ready.
All right, then when are they back home, though?
19th against Ball State, so you got 2 weeks.
You got 12 days.
Get another goal post.
12 days, Ball State, the Cardinals come to town.
Vanderbilt's like calling Tennessee, hey guys, who do you guys call
funny.
for a goalpost guy? We don't have his number anymore.
They go to like Ball State, they're like, look, we got one set of goalposts. We're all kicking this way now. We're all just going to kick this way the entire game. All right, we have got the RCM mailbag next, 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, you want to win $1,000? That's right. Cash for the sixth man. Listen for the keywords each and every weekday from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the 15th for a chance to win $1,000 13 times a day. You get all the details at ripcityradio.com. All right, it is time to wrap up the big show. We do that the same way each and every day with the RCM mailbag. Random questions, any subject, any topic. Nothing is off limits. Let's fire it up.
All right. Found a big mailbag today. Justin, something that I found kind of interesting that I mentioned to you is one of the things really recently that really stuck in my craw.
Okay.
Or a pebble in my shoe.
Pebble in your shoe, a burr in your saddle.
All of the above. And many others. I'm not alone with this because I had asked people who had regularly gone, and it was like, well, darn, that kind of just ticks me off. And it was when McDonald's decided to stop doing what was arguably their signature thing these last few years. Dollar-sized soft drink anytime, any size, any day, regardless. And any location. You could be in Alaska. They still $1.
$1.
Right?
Yep.
Hawaii, and you know they lost money on that there. But regardless. So, recently, McDonald's said, hey, we can make a lot more money if it's like $1.50 or $1.75, $2 in some places now. Now it's completely open and up to the franchisee.
Okay.
Right? So, the fine folks at Wendy's, I think they caught on to this, Justin, because they look around and they say, McDonald's is the middle ground. Taco Bell's the worst because it's $3 for a medium soda.
Is it $3?
It's like $2.89.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep. And Wendy's has now come out with a campaign saying any size, $1. And I thought, tip of the cap to some strong marketing because that's like the Costco chicken, Justin.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're probably going to lose, but you bank, hey, people are going to come here to get a large beverage and they're going to want some fries.
Okay, let's throw this out. Let's talk about this. I'm fascinated by it because it's a world I used to live in and is no longer a world I live in. That being said, I did grab Mickey D's for like the first time in a long time on Friday. Not that I am above it. It's just not.
Did you get Diet Coke?
I did.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. I got a quarter pounder with cheese, large fry, and Diet Coke.
Nice.
I can't drink regular soda. Even diet soda is a little too. One was enough, if you can believe that, but neither here nor there.
So you couldn't? You if I gave you even a just any of them, a Coke or a Pepsi, you couldn't do it?
I could choke it down. It would be
interesting.
tough. It would be tough to do.
Anyway,
But because I'm not a fast food once or twice a week guy, I just get Mickey D's.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I guess it's expensive. I don't know. I couldn't tell you the daily cost of Mickey D's.
It's gone up.
Because I go once every 2 or 3 months. It was awesome, by the way. Don't get me wrong. So here's my question. Because I remember when I used to eat fast food a lot, back when I was really fat. I guess part of it was the value menu or like what you could get for the money. But to me, the biggest thing that in deciding where I went was where I was at. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm 2 blocks away from a Burger King. I'll just go there. Isn't that like more about the convenience than about how much the soda is? Or
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
so
It's just something. It just when you brought it up, I was like, maybe it's just because when I think about I'm gonna grab fast food, I'm usually in a pinch, and it's just like, how do I conveniently run through
there
this?
have been times I have only gone to McDonald's for the soda.
Really?
And my brother too, which is crazy, but that might be so for instance, Justin, my brother sold me on this theory, and you're going to laugh, and you're going to just be like, yep, the youth. But my brother sold me on this theory, and it's a little, I'll give him credit for him developing at 18. The old metabolism doesn't start kicking in for quite a while.
Yeah, get used to it, kid.
I got to start thinking about it. But so he would tell me, so in Sherwood, Justin, which I know you spent a lot of great time in our great city now.
More time than I wanted to the other day, but neither here nor there.
But by our McDonald's is the Domino's, okay? So, my brother, again, 18-year-old teenager, big appetite, all these things, right? So he'd be like, well, I want to go get a pizza at Domino's, right? That's like $5-6, but I'm going to go get a soda at McDonald's.
Gotcha.
because then that's a large soda and I don't have to open 2 cans. And I go, well, the process is not wrong. It's not a bad
Here's
process.
what I would tell young Mr. Slaughter.
Brogan.
Shout out Brogan if you're listening. Probably not, but that's okay. Life goals should be, hopefully you find yourself in a financial situation, not that you will be a Rockefeller, but a life goal should definitely be one stop for restaurants. And you don't need to,
Hey, remember what it's like to be 18,
No,
Justin.
I do. That's what I'm saying. These are goals.
Yeah.
Right? These
for
are
sure.
things to
I hear you.
aspire to. Because I used to go cover Oregon games that I had no interest in covering because they had free food there.
But I think you can only buy like a 2-liter at Domino's. Like I don't.
Yeah,
you know,
so you buy one.
I guess you
like
could've-
that's again.
Yeah,
those
that's
are
true.
these are the life goals.
That's
that
true.
You
You probably should have.
You get a pizza and you get a 2-liter and you call it a day and you don't have to then roll through the drive-through at Mickey D's
And he
with
probably-
a full Domino's pizza.
He probably did that half a dozen times in the last year or so, man. Like, never changed, Brogan. I'm like, I love you, kid. But yeah, that was definitely an entertaining moment, to say the least, Justin.
Yeah, our pizza of choice in college, it was the Little Caesars deal.
That's clutch.
Yeah, it was. I think it was $3 mediums. Yeah, and we would just get a fridge full of them and you just eat them for a week.
That's how you gotta do it, man. When you're paycheck to paycheck.
Didn't really help with, like you said, with the metabolism and the money that I saved, or kind of saved, because it's not really. It would have been more economical to go buy groceries at the store and make food. But in my head, I was like, no, it's $3 mediums. Boom, boom, boom. I'll get like 4 of them for $12. I can eat off that. But then I would spend all the money that I saved on beers, and
That's how I felt about the
that made
Taco
it
Bell
worse.
$2 meal deal when it existed.
But yeah,
Crazy. Fun
hey,
times, though, man.
$1.50 soda, huh? Get that Domino's. Just life goal. Maybe one stop shop.
No,
Anyways.
right?
All right, that's going to do it for the big show today. Thanks to Joel Gunderson. Thanks to super producer Brendan. And thanks to all of you. Have a terrific Monday. We are back bright and early tomorrow morning here on 620 Rip City Radio.